Hello everyone, I'm going to talk about non-discrimination for all, about the case of sexual minorities. The right to protection against discrimination is an example of a clear guarantee of equal human rights for every person, right? However, existing international human rights does not extend protection for all victims of systematic discrimination. It excludes gay men, lesbians, and members of other sexual minorities from the full protection of international human rights norm. Now I'm going to show a little bit, like a little video that kind of explains what I'm going to talk about. Okay, here you go.
All over the world, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people of all ages face harassment and discrimination at work, at home, at school, and in many other everyday situations. In many countries, national laws are skewed against them. In some 76 states, having a partner of the same sex is a criminal offense. People are being arrested, singled out for physical attack, being tortured, even killed, just for being in a loving relationship. When I raise these issues, some complain that I'm pushing for new rights or special rights for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. But there is nothing new or special about the right to life and security of person, the right to freedom from discrimination. These and other rights are universal, enshrined in international law, but denied to many of our fellow human beings simply because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. We cannot let these abuses stand. We know what needs to be done. States must repeal discriminatory laws and ban discriminatory practices. Punish violence and hatred, not love. And we should all challenge homophobic attitudes. The best antidote is education for children and adults alike. Reach out, talk, learn, and help make our world safer and better for everyone. This is an historic moment. More and more states recognize the need for action and are speaking up, including here at the United Nations. With your help and the support of millions of people who believe in universal human rights, we will secure equal rights for every last one of us.
Okay, so moving on. The right to non-discrimination. When we look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 2 proclaims that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, national or social origin, etc. However, this statement is seriously exaggerated. Why? Because individuals are only entitled to protection against unjust and unfair discrimination that causes unjustifiable harm. Not to mention that society is full of legitimate distinction and discriminations. When someone reads this phrase, they would get furious at how the word legitimate can be in the same sentence as discrimination or distinction. Let's take an example. All societies restrict the rights of children, but that is a distinction based on age and mental capacity. Moreover, there's a distinction based on nationality. Individuals can claim human rights only against the government of which they are a national, or under whose jurisdiction they fall on the basis of residence. Moreover, a variety of human rights are legitimately restricted for those who are imprisoned for criminal behavior. The international recognized human rights to non-discrimination does not allow unjust or unfair public discrimination that would deprive a target group of the legitimate enjoyment of other rights. If you choose a person to be your friend according to their race, it's hateful. However, it is not a subject for regulation through anti-discrimination law. It only becomes a matter of legitimate state regulation when such friendships or social contacts influences their access to economic or political opportunities. Now, similarly, if you do not want to get married to someone of a different race, that's your choice. As I said in the case of friendship, it's hateful, but it does not violate the right to non-discrimination, unless such thing is set as a law and supported publicly. For example, if there's a law against marrying from other race, then yes, this is a violation. Thus, human rights of non-discrimination addresses horrifying practices against others, while standard threats to human dignity is not every public indignity. Non-discrimination and political struggle. Protection against discrimination based on birth and social origin takes us back to the beginning of the modern Western struggle for human rights against those who were born in a high status in society. Although most societies have assigned rights on the basis of birth, today we require that these human rights should be equally available to those on the high and on the low on society's scale of social status or origin. The rights of those on high status often have better rights than members of other social groups. For example, John Locke used the universal language of natural rights, but he developed a political theory that was aimed to protect the rights of European males who owned a lot of property. Same in the US, whose Declaration of Independence declared that all men are created equal, but up until 1815 only those who were white and owned property, or at least paid their taxes, were able to vote, while women, white men, who did not own property, African Americans, among others, they were not able to vote. However, the changing conceptions of the criteria for full and equal membership in society have interacted with wider social, economic, and political transformation. For example, Locke's link between property and citizenship. With the rise of literacy, it undercut the argument that those who do not own property lack the ability to participate fully in political society. This idea started to change after the American and the French revolutions, the rise of mass popular armies, and growing nationalist sentiments. Similarly, women and non whites were widely seen as lacking in their rational or moral capacity, and thus not able to exercise their human rights. However, for the past several decades, many movements in Western and non Western societies started to take place to end slavery, and later on colonialism. Why? In order to grant women and racial minorities the vote, to end discrimination based on race, ethnicity, and gender. Even signs of differences that were seen as justifiable have been excluded from the realm of legally and politically legitimate discriminations. That even like despised religions have come to be recognized as entitled to the same rights as other human beings from dominant groups. Now Africans, Arabs, and Asians have come to be recognized as no less human than white Europeans, and so on. Of course, with some exceptions, a lot of exceptions. Okay. This shows the development of the right of non-discrimination and the development of human rights in general through the process of social and political struggle. But a question still arises for those who are still suffering from public discrimination, which is legally and politically accepted because of their sexual behavior or orientation. Discrimination against sexual minorities. Homosexuality has become a neutral term in the American mainstream, and among activists, being gay, lesbians, transgender, or whatsoever you desire to be is something of a huge popularity at the moment. We all know how others think about this issue, that by engaging into same-sex behavior or relationship is undermining the conventional links between a man and a woman. These sexual minorities are often targeted by mainstream society because of their sexuality. Same as racism, sexism, they are human beings who are treated less than fully human and not entitled to the same rights as normal people or the rest of us. Today, such discrimination against sexual minorities is highly widespread and deeply embedded in all societies. In many countries, being different than the mainstream society is defined as a crime. They are being discriminated against and they experience violence and are even imprisoned for doing literally nothing. In Iran and Afghanistan, the penalty for being a part of the LGBTQ is death. And in Zimbabwe, the president Robert Mugabe, I don't know how that's pronounced, has said that the animals in the jungle are better than those people. Even in India, acts are punished by life in prison. Two men who tried to get married in public in India were arrested as the public called for their execution. How dare they marry someone they love, right? Aside from the normal, not so big of a deal prosecution of sexual minorities and being executed and all, they also they are also denied from a wide range of other rights. For example, freedoms of speech and association are limited by law, where jobs, housing, and social benefits are constantly at risk. Not to mention that in some cases, sexual minorities are directly intimidated or threatened. For example, in 1997, a Zimbabwean newspaper had an article that said crusade against rapists and homosexualities. They categorized the unjustifiable crime of raping someone with a harmless relationship between same sex. They justify such actions with culture and religion. My culture's justice system condemns them to death. My religion condemns them to death, so it makes it okay, apparently. One of the most nauseous examples of how LGBTQ are discriminated against is the social cleansing in Colombia and Ecuador, where there were a political violence on gays, lesbians, and transgenders. Every year, there's about 100 murders based on sexual orientation in Brazil, but this was documented in 1996. I can't talk about currently. Even where violence against sexual minorities is prosecuted, gay bashing is often sadly common. In 1998, in the US, there was a guy called Matthew Shepard, I believe, who was a college student, like any of us right now. He was beaten nearly to death and he was tied to a fence simply because he was gay. Such news are often lost in the flow of crimes or simply not reported. Sexual minorities are often subjected to civil disabilities and social discrimination. Because even when Fiji was the second country in the world that prohibited discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation in its constitution, they still prohibited same sex marriage. They are often discriminated against in employment, in housing, and access to public facilities and social services. They are denied civil statuses, adoption, inheritance, social insurance, and in the US, where healthcare is provided through employers, same sex partners are often denied healthcare. And the discrimination does not end here. Many countries deny entry to homosexuals as threats to public health or morals. Qatar has once deported foreign homosexuals outside their country, outside of Qatar. Qatar, why did I say Qatar? Only today that some countries accepted homosexuals seeking asylum. I want to end my presentation by saying that whether you are against same sex marriage or not, whether you find a guy kissing another guy disgusting, or a girl who was just born into the wrong body and wants to change her gender is stupid, whether your culture or traditions or religion condemns this action, it does not whatsoever justify the inhumane acts that are set upon sexual minorities. It does not justify imprisoning them for being different. It does not justify denying them their basic human rights and punishing them for merely being different from the mainstream society. You can hate all you want, but you can't put that hate into action. I want to show you guys a video about a story of an African woman. It was actually heartbreaking that I wanted to show it to you guys as well.
My name is Vuyelwa Jennifer Maqala. I live in Tulani Street in Khayelitsha, that is in Cape Town. My daughter's name is Loli. Here in my community, all the gays I know, they come out and tell them they are like my daughter. My husband took him a very long time to accept it. Would say, no, not in my house. Then I sat down with him. I said, this is who she is. So we can't change it. All we have to do is to accept it. In 2006, my daughter, her and her friend went for drinks. The next day, she came and told me that they were attacked. Her face was so swollen and her jaws couldn't move, and said, Mom, a group of men came to us and they were with their girlfriend. So the girlfriend said to us we were tomboys. So we told him that we are not tomboys. We are gays, that's what we are. And the boyfriends came and hit them and said, we are tired of this thing. And her friend Zoliswa went to her home. This is where they found her and they started to hit her. Loli was there watching, but hiding somewhere, and her friend died. Since then, everything changed from her because she was a happy girl and who had dreams. They buried her alive because all the dreams that she had are gone. Nothing else she cares about anymore. I think for people to learn about it, it is better if they came out about it so then people would know that they are gays and it won't change. If each and everyone could try and understand that everyone has to live the life the way she wants to live or he wants to live, it will be better.